Imperator Alexandr III was a Borodino-class battleship built for the Russian Imperial Navy in the first decade of the 20th century. The design of the Borodino-class was derived from that of the French-designed battleship Tsesarevich. The ship was completed a few months before the start of the Russo-Japanese War in February 1904 and was assigned to the Second Pacific Squadron sent to the Far East 6 months later to break the Japanese blockade of Port Arthur. The Japanese captured the port while the squadron was in transit and the destination was changed to Vladivostok. During the Battle of Tsushima in May 1905, Imperator Alexandr III was sunk by Japanese gunfire with the loss of her entire crew. Design and description: Imperator Alexandr III was 397 feet long overall, had a beam of 76 feet 1 inch and a draft of around 29 feet 2 inches at deep load. Designed to displace 13,516 long tons, she was over 600 long tons overweight and displaced 14,181 long tons. This caused a problem during sea trials on 6 October 1903 when Imperator Alexandr III made a high-speed turn that caused her to heel 15 degrees and submerged the embrasures for the 75mm guns. Her intended crew consisted of 28 officers and 754 enlisted men, although she carried 826 to 46 crewmen in service. Her design was based on that of the Tsesarevich, modified to suit Russian machinery. The ship was powered by two 4-cylinder vertical triple-expansion steam engines, each driving one propeller shaft, using steam generated by 20 Belleville boilers. The engines were rated at 15,800 indicated horsepower and designed to reach a top speed of 18 knots. Imperator Alexandr III, however, only reached a top speed of 17.7 knots from 16,225 indicated horsepower during her official machinery trials on the 23rd of July 1903. She carried a maximum of 1,350 long tons of coal, which allowed her to steam for 2,590 nautical miles at a speed of 10 knots. The ship's main battery consisted of 4 12-inch guns mounted in 2 twin-gun turrets, one forward and one aft of the superstructure. The secondary armament consisted of 12 Cannae 6-inch quick-firing guns, mounted in twin-gun turrets. A number of smaller guns were carried for defense against torpedo boats. These included 20 75mm QF guns and 20 47mm Hotchkiss guns. She was also armed with 4 15-inch torpedo tubes, one each at the bow and stern above water and 2 submerged. Imperator Alexandr II's waterline armor belt consisted of crop armor and was 5.7 to 7.64 inches thick. The armor of her gun turrets had a maximum thickness of 10 in and her deck ranged from 1 to 2 inches in thickness. The 1.5-inch armored lower deck curved downwards and formed an anti-torpedo bulkhead. Service. Construction began on Imperator Alexandr III, named after Tsar Alexander III, on 5 September 1899 at the Baltic Works in St. Petersburg. The ship was laid down on 23 May 1900 and launched on 3 August 1901. She was completed in November 1903 at the cost of 13,979,000 rubles. On 15 October 1904, Imperator Alexandr III set sail for Port Arthur from Libau along with the other vessels of the Second Pacific Squadron, under the overall command of Vice Admiral Zinovy Rozhestvensky. Rozhestvensky led his squadron, including Imperator Imperator Alexandr III, down the Atlantic coast of Africa, rounding Cape Horn, and reached the island of Nosy off the northwest coast of Madagascar on the 9th of January 1905, where they remained for 2 months while Rozhestvinsky finalized his coaling arrangements. The squadron sailed for Cam Bay, French Indochina, on the 16th of March and reached it almost a month later to await the obsolete ships of the Third Pacific Squadron, commanded by Rear Admiral Nikolai Nebogatov. The latter ships reached Cam Bay on the 9th of May, and the combined force sailed for Vladivostok on the 14th of May. While exact figures are not available for Imperator Alexandr III, it is probable that the ship was approximately 1,700 long tons overweight, as she and her sisters were overloaded with coal and other supplies, all of which was stored high in the ships and reduced the stability. The extra weight also submerged the waterline armor belt and left only about 4 feet 6 inches of the upper armor belt above the waterline. Rozhestvinsky decided to take the most direct route to Vladivostok using the Tsushima Strait, and was intercepted by the Japanese battle fleet under the command of Admiral Togo Hashiro on the 27th of May 1905. At the beginning of the battle, Imperator Alexandr III was second in line behind Rozhestvinsky's flagship, Knyaz Suvorov. Very little is known of the ship's actions during the battle, as there were no survivors from the ship and visibility was poor for most of the battle. But Captain W. C. Pakenham, the Royal Navy's official military observer under the Anglo-Japanese alliance, noted that she was set on fire early in the engagement. She did initially follow Knyaz Suvorov when the ship's steering was damaged about a half hour after the Japanese opened fire at 14:10, but turned north when her captain, Nikolai Bukhvostov, realized that Knyaz Suvorov was out of control. Togo tried to concentrate his fire on the crippled Knyaz Suvorov around 1600, but Bukhvostov turned Imperator Alexandr III straight for the Japanese battle line in a successful attempt to focus their attention on his ship. He was successful, but she was badly damaged in the process. Observers noted that her bow was badly damaged and that there was a large hole in the forward hull on the port side. When the shooting resumed around 1800, the Japanese concentrated the fire upon the ship and her sister, Borodino. Imperator Alexandr III sheered out of line to port around 1830 and capsized, but did not sink until 1907. There were no survivors. Memory. In 1908, a granite obelisk, designed by Artem Obernyakov, was constructed in the surrounding gardens of St. Nicholas Naval Cathedral, St. Petersburg, to remember the men of the Imperator Alexandr III.